Okay, welcome to the Workamajig webinar. My name is Sherry Blanche. I'm an account manager here. And just to make sure that we have the topic that you're expecting, we are going to be going through the advanced deliverable uses and options and a little bit of some workflow, but primarily not the basic workflow, but the more advanced options for setting up and automating some deliverable features. So again, my name's Sherry Blanche, and we'll be talking about the advanced deliverable setup and use. A couple of things too, if you have questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A tab. If you chat questions, I'll try to watch for those as well, but the Q&A is a nice place for me to track specific questions that you have. And I'll try to answer some live. I might just pause now and then to go through them, not answer them immediately, especially if it's something I'm still going to be covering. So again, for those just joining, again, welcome to the Advanced Deliverable webinar. My name is Sherry Blanche. So we'll get started with some of the features related to using deliverables. And one thing I started with here is just my project page. Now I'm going to go into some system setup areas. Some of you may not have access to that, but just note that some of the things that we're looking at today are based on a system administrator function of setting up the options and uses of some of the advanced features that we'll be looking at. But I did just open up my project page to show that one of the first things we can do on the project dashboard here is to have a field of open deliverables. And this again is a system setting that the administrators can do by editing some columns to just have that deliverable. Let me see if I can find that field here. It's in here somewhere. I probably just went right by it. Open assignments, there we go. It's right at the top, went right by it. So this is a system admin function to decide what fields do I want to see open deliverables. We also have one for what we call the to-dos, open to-dos, and that's going to be part of what we look at as well on the deliverables is this field here. So I'm also going to pop that over here as well. So that's something that your administrators can do for people to see these things that we're going to be using on deliverables easily and quickly. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is you may be pretty familiar with a project deliverable. They can be started various places and ways. You can, if you're using these at all, you can start them from a file to just say send for review and then individually define how these are routing. So we'll just talk briefly about this option just for those that may be completely new. So when we start, we know that we can name whatever the deliverable is, describe it, and decide how we want this routed. So this is pretty basic. I want just an internal round, or I want internal and client. And then you have some ability to start from here, or we can start it and then add whatever files we need by just starting the deliverable itself. So again, once I start it, I can add whatever file type I want as well, add to this. But it's really the process of who does it need to go to, and of course, who needs notified, how many steps. There are ways to have multiple internal steps. Maybe the designers review or account manager, then designers, and maybe it goes to a legal step. So those are some things that are pretty typical with defining how these route, where they go, and who's going to be notified once decisions are made. So that's a very basic starting point of a deliverable. And they all start out here, of course, multiple rounds within one, as you all probably know. But what we really want to be looking at today are some additional options to automate the process of how we see these, how they get managed, especially when you have large website projects or multiple page deliverables, and how those can be customized fully. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to come into the main menu, Administrator System Setup, to show a few things that I have turned on to use in our deliverable feature. So the very beginning point is Transaction Preferences. And in here, I'll start first with Projects, because we have an ability here to use what we call key people. So if you haven't used these key people fields before, this can be part of the deliverable process. So in addition to having an account manager up here, and I also in my system have turned on a project manager. So this could be the client account manager. Then I have different managers for each project possibly. And in addition to that, you can name and have these key people fields as well. This can relate to automatically route these deliverables, as we'll see, to these people on each project. So we wouldn't have to come in each time and name, oh, put this person and this person on. It can already do this for you and automate that process. So that's one of the main things we're going to show today. I also have turned on using to-dos. I happen to have a couple other features on with to-dos. These wouldn't be required, by the way. I should have maybe even turned those off, which is fine, but you might see a few things different in this example for today. The next place I do want to go, though, is this deliverable, because here in my preferences, I have turned on to use to-do items. What this is going to do is allow us to take comments, turn them into an actionable list of edits or whatever we need. And I also turned on using what we call statuses for deliverables and also types. So these are features that are beyond the defaults that are set up to begin with. Now, the things that we're talking about today as well are not necessarily needed. So this is only if you find a need to organize and have your deliverable set up in a certain way. So just because we're showing some of these advanced features isn't stating that you absolutely need all these on. So it's going to be a trial error. You can decide whether this is more useful or if it just becomes more cumbersome. So in the beginning, again, a lot of these options are not on. I have also set up just some default options of how these route, some instructions that you can enter on the external step, internal step. So those are within your deliverable settings as well. Once we turn those options on, we will have these abilities here under our global list to now create what we call statuses, types, and some other options. These can be named whatever you wish. So it's simply creating a list of what you want to call these. I just did a kind of a simple example of a few different deliverable statuses to show. So it's not just a deliverable that's open or closed. It's now can move along what we call these statuses. You can color code these as you wish and decide which one's going to become your default status. And then if I have a status called, for example, approved, I can have it automatically mark that as being completed if you wish. I mean, that's just a toggle on off to do that. And then we have types. So this is really nice, and I'm going to demonstrate what happens with these. The types is useful because you can even create custom fields based on what type of deliverable it is. Now, I understand you already have project type, but even if you have project types, you might have multiple deliverables within that one project type that might be different. It may be a one-to-one. That's up to you. Of course, we also have campaigns, so we can be setting up campaign deliverables, and it can guide the routing and custom fields and reporting of these based on what type it is. Again, these can easily just be named. You can insert and name whatever types you want, color code, put a description. And what we can see here as well is that I can come in, I can create custom fields here on my deliverables. So this is handy for a lot of complex reporting that you might need related to the deliverable file review process. I did a simple, video length, and these are just like any custom fields if you're familiar at all with, which is you name your field, you choose what type of field it is. This one happens to be a dropdown, and you add your field and define it as you need to use it. So you can do that per individual deliverable, add and assign these to those specific types. This is, let me see which one I wanted to use. This also lets you define each approval process based on what type it is. So what's nice about this feature here, we'll talk a good bit about this because I don't know who's on certain projects, but I know that I'm going to have, when I create a deliverable that's a video type, I can define specifically here using several things. I can use my standard project fields, my key people fields, which are these two. I can also add approvers based on a service. So what's nice, it's very similar to kind of your project templates and schedules of I know what services, I don't know who. This is the same concept. I don't know who, but I know what the service is and what key people I need whenever I route this type of deliverable. So when we add approvers, you not only get people, because again, we don't know who's going to specifically be on these projects, deliverables until later, but now I get my key people ability to say, well, I know that for this, I need my videographer, my designer. These are my custom defined key people. And you can see I also have these primary project fields available as well. These are standard fields, project manager, account manager, contact billing manager. So I get the ability to route based on these key fields on any project, regardless of who that might be later. I also have all of my services. So if I know that I have these specific services that relate to a video deliverable versus a website deliverable, I can be routing that based on my services that relate to that specific type of file review. So this one again is video. So I've picked a service and some key people that would relate to that. If I would come into the website, I have now picked my key people field related to the technology, and I have some services that relate to a web development deliverable. So it makes it very quick and easy, and I'm going to show how that can automate that approval process. So it's easy to come in, define what custom fields you might want related to a deliverable and an approval process based on those key people. And again, on this one, on a photo image, I did 2 internal steps. I defined those by services and key people, and then I had a legal with an actual legal review key people field as well. So let me see, no questions so far. Okay, chat your questions in the QA anytime, and or QA, if you do chat them, I'll pick them up there as well. So that's our types. So this is very useful for automating a process. Now, keep in mind when we set this up by type and it pulls in those approval people automatically, I can still edit that. So it doesn't mean that that is, every time. If that's not the case, that's fine. It's just a default process defined by type. It doesn't mean that you can't change it case by case. And then we have in here some to-do statuses that I had turned on that are simple that we're going to see as well. So this is another piece that, again, is on if we don't have that on. And we're going to talk about the to-dos related to deliverables. But if that's not on, it would just be open closed, or we can run those through statuses. So that's all in our system setup. So I'm going to come back to my project manager page and talk as well about those deliverables. Let me actually go to the project page here. So what we're going to see is the use of that by type specifically. That's one of the main things I'd like to show. And then before we go into that, I can also show how we can turn the comments into those actionable items, which many of you may already be doing. But I'm going to start here in my project by deliverable type to just show an example of what happens when we automate that process. So in this project, I have an account manager. Maybe I also have someone else that's a project manager specific. Let me set this to somebody I don't think is on there. So I have a project manager, and here's my key people. So I have a lead designer. Maybe I also have Bob Smith as my videographer. This is web related, so I'm just going to focus on the videographer, and let me think which type I want to try. We'll also do a logo type to see this person come in. So again, my key people field become the drop down of any full active user to assign those. So the other thing I have on here is I also have team members and I have services. So if I have a person with that videography service, that will quickly, in fact, I'll just edit this to be somebody else so we can see another person come into, let me see if I can add someone else to that videography service. Give me 1 second. I'm going to add that in here. So we're going to add that onto our schedule and add that onto our team. So I can now say that here's who's going to be performing that service. So when I create a deliverable by that type, either from my files right here, and I'm going to just do an image for this one. But what we're going to see is as soon as I create that based on that type, and we say this is a video type. And by the way, when we do this, the type is only in the beginning. So it is just available when you first create it, not when you go in and edit later. You can't change the type after the fact, similar to orders. So we'll just pick this, and you can see that default status populates. And I'm just going to do an internal, and we're going to default approval process based on type. All right, so here's my custom field. So whatever you needed there. And what we're going to see as soon as you create that, is that automatic approval process. So again, if you have a lot of creative that start this process, or you have people that start the process of file review, they don't have to come in now and say, well, who do I need to send this to? Oh, let me look up and see. I'm not sure. I don't remember who does the legal review. They don't need to have any of that known. All they have to do is know, when I create this, I know what type of deliverable it is, and it now has automatically put in my approvers based on those key people fields, the service, the project manager, whoever is assigned in the project, setup, and team. So it really makes that easy to start that process. And again, the idea is that if there is a change of, needing somebody additional, that's fine. You can add other team members, other staff members as need be. You can also, of course, delete or skip people that might become, maybe they're out, maybe you have a different person that comes into their place. But that's how you can quickly be editing this and send this out immediately without having to come in and cherry pick one by one who needs to go in this. It just automates that entire process based on type. Again, if I pick one more type called logo and image type, and I save this, we'll see that we have an entire different approval process based on how that one is set up. Any questions? Everybody's pretty quiet today. Okay. Are the approvers auto-assigned a task to review once uploaded? That's a great question. We're going to look at assigning a rework task. So the question again is, are these approvers assigned a task to review once uploaded? These do not have to go with a task. What we will see in here is if we want to assign a task in the detail. So this is now my deliverable. I can come in and assign a deliverable to a specific person. This is actually the owner. As far as the approver and the comments that are being made, that's going to be really on the review process itself here, that we can come in and we can do that based on who is it being sent to, and now who needs to review those comments. So we have in here in the beginning, the step. This is the step within this round. We do have the ability here to assign it to a task to show up on someone's today page, on the creative today. So my examples, we have review. It might be on this task. It might be on an edit task. So it could be assigned a task. It doesn't necessarily have to be. But what we will see when we're going through these is when we do this, we also can reassign the actual editing comments to a specific person when we turn those into what we call a to-do list. So that's a little bit more detailed than just this deliverable step itself. So you can assign a task here, and that would show up on that creative today. And I think that I'm trying to think, I'll have to see what task I have out here on my creative today to show you that. I do have a couple open here that show, and again, this is the creative that can say, well, here is my my project that I'm on this development task. I need to see what deliverables are related to this task. So if you do assign a task, it can specifically relate to who is out here on their Creative Today page. And on these options, system-wide or individually, we do have this open to-do, open deliverable that can narrow down what shows up here on your actual today page based on only show me things that have these open edit lists and open deliverables that are in an active file review. Now I'm going to show you the additional task assignment to the actual edits, but did that answer your question about it's not an automatic assign them, because really the approval of a deliverable sent out just comes up here. So it's not necessarily a task itself. It could be assigned to a task, but if I send somebody a deliverable for approval, they are going to get it. They're going to get it in their email. They're going to get it unless you have that set up to only send in system messages, but I will see anything that I'm supposed to review here based on the fact that I'm an approver and I have not yet made a decision on this deliverable. So now we'll go into another advanced option of the to-do items. And then if there's still some other questions about that approval process, the types and statuses, we'll look at that. Now I am going to go after this to the overall deliverable board, to-do board, my today pages to see some of this activity as well. But what I would like to talk about for a moment is that on these, we now have the ability to add comments, of course, whoever's reviewing this, what needs done. And when we do these comments, of course, you can annotate. And by the way, if your annotations look different than these, you know, I'll show you some system settings. But what we have when we turned on the preferences to say that we want to use the to-do items with deliverables is this. So this is what gives us that ability to say, we're going to be making lots of comments on this. Maybe somebody comes in and just says, you know, a general comment. It's nothing that really is specific to something that anybody needs to do. But what we get, and you can see this one I've already turned into a to-do item that's in progress, but it lets me take these comments that everybody is making and decide which ones are actionable. This one's not actionable, I can ignore. This one really I agree with whoever's going through this after they've gone through that entire approval process, and they can turn these into what we call a to-do item. So it makes this an actionable option to quickly show someone, here's what we decided actually needs fixed. You know, it's maybe an executive decision of somebody going through all the comments, because we know some comments are just simply that. It's just, oh, that's nice, or I like that, but there's nothing really to do. So this lets me turn it into an actual to-do item that can be seen out on that page based on who is on the art revision task in the schedule. And when we do this, we can also create a new task if we need to. So there's different ways to be adding that, fix this, moving that through statuses, or moving it through the different tasks if needed. So we'll look at where this shows up so that people can be clearly seeing a list of what really needs to be done on these pages. Now, this can be very useful too when we look at the to-do board and the statuses. You can actually define those specific just for certain types of deliverables, for example, websites, for doing checking on bugs fixing, testing, retesting. So your statuses can be built based on the type of work that you do and the type of deliverables that get routed to quickly see that information. But we can see here that whoever, now this one's on an actual client revision task that's in here. And there are also some to-do items that are listed on my task for client revisions that are considered an open to-do. So it lets a designer, somebody on this task, to come in quickly, see the deliverable, take a look at that to-do list, and right from here, it's very easy because all they have to do is come in and say, let me view that markup. Let me take a look at what they're referring to if they want to open that. Of course, if you have multiple rounds, you can do the compare. So if you're not familiar with this, if you say, well, let me see round 2, round 1, you have that ability as well. So if they need to be coming in and taking a closer look at all of those details, they could. Otherwise, they can simply come in, do that edit, say, we're going to blend that better. We did that. We'll go ahead and now we'll mark that complete. And we'll put in my comment that, you know, whatever you wanted to say to that. Now, obviously, you can notify additional people of this comment. It's a conversation related to that deliverable, that task, and that whatever is being edited that needs to be done. And as soon as you change that to that status, that would close that to-do item for you. Now, from your creative today, this is where they can also come in and quickly go into that deliverable board. So this is using those statuses that you customize to say, well, I need to take a look. Maybe you have, again, multiple page, 100-page document that's being reviewed. Those can be routing through these statuses. And this is, I opened it from this project specifically. So it opened again to that project. If I say I need to see all of the deliverables for this client, I can do that. But it's really saying, well, what am I really trying to see here? Am I trying to see it by campaign, which again, you can assign these by campaign, by project, by task, and we can also see in here a grid view. So on my deliverable board, whether I open it from my creative today, or it's also from your main menu, project manager deliverables, same board here. I can be managing now these deliverables in a global view by client, by project, campaign, and I can also be grouping by status or by owner. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to be managing these. Now this has to have an actual overall due date. And I don't know on my calendar right now, it's probably back here a ways. Yeah, it's back in September, but this is based on, do I have an overall due date of this deliverable here that I need to see? So this means no matter how many rounds, how many internal, external steps that might have their own date, I have an overall date. So when you think of projects, projects have their own due date, but every task within it has its own dates associated. Same with deliverable. I have an overall due date, even though I may be in here and have multiple rounds that have different dates that they have to be done themselves. So each step within, internal, external, can have their own date. But if I'm looking at the deliverable board by date, it's going to be the overall date that I need all of those rounds and steps done. Now, this is also a drag drop. So if anybody is out here saying, well, this is now, I need to take this out to a different status, you can simply drag drop. It's editing that deliverable status live as you move these around. Or of course, it can go to those statuses as everyone's updating those processes in each deliverable and each round. If I click on one of these, it will automatically pop open that project here. So if you do narrow down, I only want to see this, it will then filter by that project on its own as soon as you click on the project link in this board, which is kind of nice. Now, a lot of people do use their task and schedule to arrange and know where the deliverable is. That's fine. You can use both. You can use a status. You can use the scheduled task. Some use both. Maybe your statuses are entirely different than what's in your schedule. There are some I've seen that only use status. So they don't really have a timeline schedule. They just simply want to have a status, and the status can really be the tracking where it is. Now, so if your statuses are named the same as your schedule, that would be fine. But that would mean you're really not going to use schedule and status because they would be one and the same. So the decision really is, are we scheduling our projects in a way that we want to track these based on our schedule? Do we also have some statuses? Again, maybe we have statuses for first review and then legal review, and those are our statuses. So those are options as well to say where they are in that process. So those, what's nice is you get to define those based on what your needs are. Now you'll see in here, when we open a deliverable, again, we have the details here. This is the status that can be updated. We have our due date. We can also be having that conversation related to a deliverable that just a general conversation. It's not the comments in the deliverable, but it's a general conversation that I want surrounding that deliverable. And then I can have that to-do list of open and closed. And we do have the ability to add time to our deliverable. Now, most of the time, that would still be here. I'm doing a review. Here's my video review. I'm adding my entry to this deliverable, and I spent an hour reviewing that file. So the majority will still use the task, the creative today, to say what the time entry is for. But the nice thing now is that I can immediately assign this to whichever deliverable in this project I might be reviewing, which makes it a nice feature to track and report on hours by deliverable or by deliverable type. So again, the deliverable, if you're in here, you're reviewing, you're going through comments, you're editing, making decisions. And by the way, video and web freeze frame comments to that specific spot. So if you haven't uploaded, and you don't have to upload the entire file, you can just do the Vimeo or YouTube link to those. But it's nice because it will freeze frame those comments. You can turn those into that to-do list, and those can easily be out there for someone to be editing, making those edits. So multiple ways I can drill into it. Again, I can come in right from here. Where's my to-do list? And this is a similar Kanban style when you're using those to-do statuses of here's what I need to do. I'm going to say I reviewed that, and maybe I move it over here to complete it, and it defaults it into a closed to-do for me. So again, when we open it from this specific deliverable, this specific task, it's going to show me that list of to-do items easily for me to manage. Now, someone on the overall side, and this is the same as tasks and deliverable board. I can see it in a card view. I can see it in a grid view. I can create different layouts for me to view these. I can also come in and do a search, change my search option here, only see open. So if you haven't used some of these Kanban views, grid views, note that they have a lot of flexibility to come in here. Maybe I don't want them by status name. Maybe I want them grouped by client or by project if I only have it searching by client. So you have the ability to be controlling how you want to manage these, and then come in and add your comments, maybe email somebody your comment. So it makes a nice, streamlined, easily accessible, here's what I'm supposed to do, here's what I did. I'll go ahead and add time to this. At the same time, add my comment and let somebody know that this is finished. So that's from the creative. Same way here, I can also be the manager that's out here saying I need to take a look at all the things that are open. So who is the client? I know on most of these, the client was my Platco. So let me see those to-do items. Let me search it by who's supposed to be doing that. Have they finished their to-do list? I can be managing these in the same way to take a look at what's in progress. So as a manager, I can quickly come in, maybe reassign this to a different person, come in and assign this over to someone else and quickly see where these are, what's open, what's closed, and who's doing what. So it's like your assignment review, but now we're getting down to the detail of all the deliverables, all of the, by client or by project, and also see it now in this open, closed, and decide what I want to search. Do I only want assigned? Do I want open, closed, active only? And how do I want to be managing this list of things that should be getting done? So we have both abilities to have the creative here, quickly drilling into that. Of course, if I open my task card, I can also see that information here, or I can come in. This is often a nicer, quicker view. Again, do I need to come in, send out some more files for review as a designer and come in and upload files and start a new review process? I get to do all of that right from my assigned task. Any questions? So let's take a look again at our project manager side. We also have that quick view of our deliverables. What open items do I have in this one? So let's see. Oh, open to do. Sorry, I did the, so I think I did include unassigned. Oh, let me take out the assigned person. I think that's, I kind of messed that up. So, okay. So I went into my filters. I had one user, so that was limiting what actually opened up, but obviously I can be in here. Now you might have some that are in a specific role that all they really do is they come into this to-do board and they have these into their very specific web development statuses, and they're just simply dragging and dropping these across, and somebody's picking it up based on what status is it in. So that is certainly a feature to use for those types of deliverable reviews, to quickly come in and say, well, who is doing what and where is it, and show me what Sherry still has open or this person, and let me reach out and find out what we need to do related to this. You also have the quick ability to create your new to-do over here. Again, you can add these to multiple projects. Now, what I showed today is more related to, I need my comments taken from this review process, and I need those turned into this very specific list for somebody to make sure gets corrected. So that's the main use. Of course, there are other uses of the detailed. Now, don't ever confuse the to-do list to the task. Task is the schedule, the driving force of a project. These are the nitty-gritty details within each of those tasks. No questions. Just curious if you could raise your hand on how many currently use deliverables. And, oh, that's good. Just getting a quick little glimpse of who uses them. And are there some that use the advanced features? Oh, and I do want to show you a couple other settings. So I will go back to, there is a question. Thanks for the quick survey of who's using. So on logging time to a deliverable, there are a couple of different options. So let me take a look at that. So if we're on a Creative Today page, that will still be the main place that you, and I think there might be a setting if you don't see the time entry here to select a deliverable. There is a setting, and I do have to find that. So give me just a minute to, it might be a security, right? Let's see. Always a little tricky to find the setting. I'm going to show you another place, but if I'm assigned and the deliverable, you know, I am on the deliverable, I will have that ability here if it's related to me. So what I'm adding time to is typically coming from my today page. I know there are some that just manually come in and enter time. So if this is your process by chance, and I come in and say, this is my logo image, you will also get this ability in a manual entry to add time here if you're used to that. Now, we always recommend that people add time easily from here because I don't have to think of anything. It's already in there. I don't have to pick my service or project or anything because it's already assigned to me. But if I open a deliverable here, I do also have a time entry that I can do here, and it would automatically just open up this tab. Now, this is less likely used, but it is in the overall deliverable detail. Like we have my to-do list and my rounds. I have that right here that I can quickly come in and add some extra time that I worked on this video. Maybe I did another half hour, did more edits, whatever it is, I can do a time entry here. I believe it is show round review. I'll have to look at the system setup. I believe it's a time entry security, right? Or I might have to follow up with you if I can't answer that, right? Always kind of, let me see if it's on the deliverable itself. Oh, here, okay. So it is a preference on your system setup that you might, if you're not an admin, you would have to ask them, hey, we want to be tracking time down to the deliverable itself, not just the task. You can ask them to go to their admin system setup and preferences and turn on the enter time option for you. Now you can see there are other things here that I did not turn on. If you really relate your deliverable process and where they are to the schedule, then you might want to turn on the required tasks, because that would mean you have to assign these rounds and these things to a task, because we have to know specifically where they are in the process of our schedule, not just by using statuses. So that is also an ability here. And then this defaults how many steps, how it's routed. We do always recommend the login on internal users for various reasons. There's some other basic deliverable workflow things as well as what I've showed today. But I hope that answered your question about entering time. It can be done a number of different ways, but the easiest is just from the creative today and my task of, whatever I'm doing here, rework or whatever, and I just add time, and then I pick which deliverable I'm editing. Now I have some other deliverables. I think there's one with client revision. Let me look at the schedule. But depending on where it's at in the task, I can find, and in my schedule, by the way, I do have that same list of the to-do items. So if you have somebody, this is where they live. This is actually where they get attached when you're adding those comments and turning those into a to-do list. Those are coming in here. And again, giving somebody that detail of what needs changed. Okay, so I have another question of, can I show or explain how it impacts resourcing creatives? So deliverables to do show up in the staff schedule. Well, that's an excellent question. No, they will not. So now they can put time to it, but you cannot just put time to a deliverable. So you still have, even if your schedule is only one task, this is still your resourcing. So let's say you have a schedule that is simply create, review, get approval. A schedule can be that simple. Your review is going to be where all the hours go. That's fine. Your hours are here. It's still in just review or create or whatever it is. Client review, internal review. I've seen these be very simple. I have internal review, I have client review. And then I finalize, and then we have an edit task, and then we have an approve task. And everything just goes into that detailed. But so in my staff schedule, and give me a minute because this will be, I wasn't prepared to go in here, so give me just a second. I want to try and do my one client maybe only, and I'm still only going to see my resourcing based on hours and what I've resourced in that schedule, or if I have bucketed hours. So I won't see the deliverable really in here, because this is just how long do I expect for review and create and edit. So this will still be coming from your schedule and from your allocated hours for those tasks. So even though we can add time to, let's say we have a review task in here, but now I have all sorts of different deliverables assigned to that review task, I can still break out now those hours by that and report on the hours by deliverable, but the time and the resourcing and the estimated time for review and edit will still be driven by the task itself and the schedule and what you allocate there. Does that make sense? So again, even if I assign someone a to-do, it's still linked to a task. the task has allocations. So that is where the staff schedule is really looking for that. And then what actual time has been spent based on what has been allocated here. So this will still be task, even though, yeah, I've been editing my, let me go to my Platco. But yeah, it's still going to be based on allocations in those schedules in the task itself. So we're relating the deliverable to a task, we're relating a to-do item to the task, but the task is still holding the approximate number of hours that that task is going to take. Hope that made sense. This is taking longer to load because I have a lot more in this Platco client, and I should have maybe just picked some statuses of boot camp, but I didn't, so we'll let it just take its time, and maybe I can still narrow it down. I think by the time I do this, it'll load. So any other questions on? Yeah, that's a really interesting question though about allocating just to the deliverable. We really don't do that. The deliverable can still be assigned to a specific task, and that's still going to hold the resource. So there are some that do actual schedules that say round 1, round 2, and actually track a lot of that by task. And those, again, the time itself will be in that schedule. I did want to show one other thing for the overall reporting. Of course, we can do custom reports from the data, time detail based on deliverable. But what we'll see here as well is in all of your deliverables, one thing I would like to recommend if you're using these is in this view of your deliverables here that a project manager might be saying, where are these? What ones are in round 1, round 2? We have, and it only defaults with approval status. So it tells me, where is this in the process, right? Is it still being reviewed? Is it finished? But I always like to show that if you are one that can customize listings, which are views, add approver status. What's nice about this additional view, and there are more things that we can add to this, like we can add the custom fields, we can add approved, completed, date round approved, all sorts of different options to add more detail in here. But approver status in this view is nice because it can quickly show you, here's my internal review. It's still being reviewed by this person. If I even came in right now and I approved it, it would show quickly that now it's, and by the way, this can show you who else has already made a decision. I can edit my rework task here easily. But if I make this decision myself and say it's, I approve, then that will refresh the view here to quickly say, Sherry approved it. Now it's still being reviewed by this person or that person. So this is nice. Now you can see I have current round in there twice. That's kind of a mistake. Let's take one of them out. But you can modify this to also be reporting easily on these, group them the way you want. So the view I am in, again, that's nice to, I'll go back to where I got to this. I came into main menu, project manager, and I know I get click happy. So, and then I'm in today project manager, and I'm in my overall deliverable view. Now I named one for myself that's specific to some things I was doing earlier. But this, you will have one just called deliverables. it will start out, I don't remember the default, but it will have approval status and round and some other things. What I do is I like to suggest that someone with the rights come in and add approver status. So it's different than this. This is the overall. Is it submitted? Is it approved? Is it rejected? This shows me who is on that approval process at the time and where is it in that review itself. So I can actually see the people and who's already made a decision. And this will also depend on how it gets routed as far as when it gets completed. So that's some of the basic deliverable process. So if you need more on the basics of deliverables, we do have guides and webinars on just basic deliverable workflow. So if you're not using deliverables yet at all, I would start with that. This one, again, is more for some of the advanced setup options in transaction preferences. And one other thing I did want to show before we finish up is, I went ahead and sent that out, is again, the options for edit tools are also an admin function. So if you first come in and you start using deliverables, you will not have advanced tools unless it's turned on. And there are options under here to also decide some other things that you may or may not want. So there's a lot of moving parts to deliverables, and it's easy to get lost in them. So if you want a follow-up call with your account manager to review any of the advanced uses and or go into some of the basics, if that's where you're at, then certainly reach out to support@workamajig.com and ask for a call to help out with starting to use these or using these with some advanced options. And then we record these webinars, just to note. And you can easily, I clicked on my name, I clicked on more in the guide to open up here our support guide. When you click on webinars, you can quickly get back to any of the previous ones that are recorded. This one will be here recorded. It takes a while to get the recording up. It'll be in here probably in about a week. But you can review these at your leisure at any time. And again, if you need, there's several other deliverable, basics. I don't know, maybe it was last year, but you can, browse through these, pop in and get some. And then you can also just type deliverable to get into the overall guide, status setup, overview, or some other webinars. So really appreciate everyone who took time to be on this today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. And again, reach out to us if you need any follow-up calls on this or deliverable use in any way. And we're continually advancing, listening to your feedback to enhance not only this. I know there's quite a few things still in the discussion of the use of deliverables and options here. So we do appreciate your feedback. We do take those back to the development team and look at how we can improve things. So thanks for always taking time to do that. And thanks for being on the webinar today. I'll go ahead and wrap up and have a great rest of your Wednesday. Bye.